Hi, I'm Bianca and I'm going to talk about my trip to Mungo. I didn't know what to expect when venturing to Mungo, but I was excited of the spiritual journey which awaited. Being a young emerging artist, I was keen to meet established artists and getting to know their stories, how they got to where they are today, and their processes to making extraordinary pieces of art. Organisation is a key factor whenever you are planning to go on a big journey. However, being an unorganised person, I found this really challenging. I'm the type of person who leaves everything until the last minute and relies on sheer luck for everything to run smoothly. When venturing to Mungo, I found luck wasn't in my favour. Renee and I couldn't get a spot on the V-Line bus as it was full because we didn't plan ahead and book in advance. We just went at a time which suited us and hoped for the best. This wasn't a good start to the trip, as it not only stressed us out and delayed our travel by an entire day, it also messed up the plans we had with the person we were staying with, and resulted in us arriving in Mildura at 2 a.m. in the morning. If you're unorganised, a whole ripple effect occurs, and it not only affects your own plans, but it also messes up the plans of others. So it was a lesson learnt to be more organised for my future trips and plans, or else everything tends to go wrong. It also looks unprofessional if you have not planned ahead and can give the wrong impression of carelessness to employers. Patience and resilience was needed when travelling for over 7 hours to Mungo. I found this extremely challenging as I have a medical condition which doesn't allow me to sit for long periods of time as it becomes uncomfortable. There was a lot of swapping and changing to different trains and buses. We were first on a coach for about 3 hours, then a train for 2 hours, and then a coach again for another few hours. Some say it isn't about the destination, but rather the journey travelled to get there. I found I gained a deeper understanding and appreciation of the environment which surrounded me. Whilst taking in the picturesque sceneries of Mildura, I discovered the importance of embracing the long journey rather than complain about how long it took to get there. Socialising is an important aspect to form any sort of relationship with others. Personally, I find interacting with strangers quite challenging as I suffer from anxiety and depression. However, in order to establish a connection, you need to put yourself out there despite how difficult it may be or how awkward you feel. Breaking through these barriers allowed me to get to know briefly the artists, and it was incredible how a simple "Hi, how are you?" and introducing yourself could lead into a further and more complex conversation. I discovered that the initial starting of a conversation can be daunting, but what follows afterwards came naturally, as all the artists were more than happy to give a brief rundown of their background story and profession, which enabled me to feel a lot more calm and less overwhelmed when meeting these successful, accomplished artists. Despite my medical condition, I found strength within me to endure the bumpiness of an unmarked road, which was so uncomfortable for me when getting up to Mungo. But I had to focus on the positives of what it would be like when I finally made it up there. There was a big huntsman spider as soon as I entered the shearers' quarters where we were sleeping. My greatest fear is spiders, so I was in an absolute panic when I first saw it and I just wanted to pack up and leave straight away. But luckily I found the courage to swallow my pride and ask if someone could remove it without killing it. One of the park rangers did easily and quickly without a fuss, but I am the type of person who doesn't like to ask for help. However, if I didn't ask them, then I wouldn't have slept through the entire night because I would have been paranoid that the spider was going to crawl inside my sheets as I slept. I learnt that simply asking for help could relieve a lot of stress and unnecessary worry. We went on a guided tour in the sandy desert and learnt about the history of the elders, ancient stories, how Mungo formed, and what was left behind. We even got to touch sacred rocks from thousands of years ago. It was a challenge because the weather was so hot, but also a privilege at the same time to experience something not usually open to the public. Approaching others may come easily to a lot of people, but not for me. It was a very difficult challenge finding the right time to approach the artist I wanted to be mentored by. Having anxiety can make a simple "excuse me" seem impossible. It took a long time to muster up the courage to finally say this, as I overthought whether I was interrupting her conversation and a little afraid she would find my friend and I annoying following her around for the entire day. However, I found the perfect timing as she was leaving the breakfast table and I introduced myself and highlighted I was a media student and would be very interested to know more about the work she was producing throughout her Mungo trip. Jem was more than happy to help and was very accommodating, letting us into her film world, showing us how she set up the equipment, how she made the talent feel comfortable, and she let us watch her conduct an interview. I learnt that an initial introduction of yourself is very important, and people actually appreciate when you show interest and initiate conversation, as it shows your eagerness and maturity to be able to approach someone. Being primarily interested in the media field, I found it difficult connecting with artists who had different creative backgrounds. So in order to gain a further understanding, I briefly researched the background of these artists and prepared questions relatable to their own creative field. This initiative showed an interest in their work and an eagerness to learn more about their profession. I hate to admit it, but being in the middle of the desert with no reception and little to do proved to be challenging, as there was no contact from the outside world. Despite this, my friend and I rediscovered the inner child within us and started doing different activities which we wouldn't usually do. We simply lay in the sun whilst meditating, drew portraits of one another, had deep and meaningful conversations, and simply took in the bittersweet silence. It was almost a subtle escape to be surrounded by nothing but orange desert. Waking up at the crack of dawn at around 5:30 a.m. was extremely challenging for me. I never wake up at the time. However, it was a sacrifice I was willing to make to see the beauty of the sunrise. We walked in the cold darkness for nearly an hour until we reached a lookout, where we waited patiently for the sun to rise, and boy, was it a magnificent sight and well worth the yawning. The different colours which were painted across the sky of different shades of pinks and oranges were absolutely mesmerising. The moment when the sun rose completely was breathtaking. It was a view I'll never forget, and I don't think I will ever see for a long time. I learnt sometimes you need to make sacrifices to see something so magical. Mungo was a special and unique place, and I'm glad I experienced such a rare opportunity. I felt connected to a spirit out in that desert, which made me feel somewhat at peace from all the worries in my mind and world back home. Having so much inspiration which surrounded me enabled me to develop a better understanding of how artists work and how they are influenced to make great pieces of art. Despite the challenges I faced, I wouldn't change a thing, as it taught me life lessons and skills which I can now apply to my own future career as an artist.